Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from dads hitting rock bottom, daughters watching their parents divorce, or even what is a good wine for couples to have while talking about finances. Here's your host, who actually owns a copy of the best of Milli Vanilli. Imagine that, Tommy Maloney.
Welcome to another episode of Blending the Family, the podcast. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thank you so much for coming by, tuning in, listening, sharing, caring, giving the world a hug. Did I mention I'm your host, Tommy Maloney? I think I did. All right, on this episode, this was a lot of fun. And Johnny Nomad, a.k.a. Johnny's Corner, on Instagram, Johnny's Corner on Instagram. And that's where I think I not discovered him, but, follow him, found him, liked him, I don't know. But Johnny is just one of those people that just, when he posts something, it truly comes from the heart. And I really wanted him on the podcast. And little did I realize, or did I know until I received his bio, this coming March 2018, he's getting married. And we talked about he and his fiance are going to become a blended family. Not only a blended family, but I called him the Brady Bunch XL, I believe. 9 kids. 9 kids between them. And Johnny and I talk about how to be a man. We talk about mentors and mentorship. He was a dad at 18. Yes, dad at 18. We also talk about regrets and how regrets can be positive. And we also, I was really interested in the fact of how did him and his fiance handle the part of they were getting married and working with the kids and having the kids be a part of the relationship. And so you're going to hear him talk a lot about he uses the word tribes. I'm a huge Seth Godin fan. And once Johnny started using the word tribes, I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And I love it. Johnny's originally from New York. And let me warn you right now, we, including myself, we dropped some F-bombs. So please, warning you now, there's foul language. And also, I apologize, but Duke was extremely barkative. Barkative? Is that a word? On this episode. And I need some sleep, but I need to get this podcast somewhat edited, and that's it. I'm done. Enjoy this podcast. If you need me, you can always email me at tommy@blendingthefamily.com. tommy@blendingthefamily.com. Bye. Are you a spiritual guy, Johnny?
Yes, absolutely.
I think God was trying to interfere with me interviewing you tonight because on my way home, there was a major traffic accident on a 2-lane highway, a country road. And I had to turn around and get back on the highway, and more traffic. And I'm going to tell you, I really had to pee really bad because it's an 1.5-hour drive from the freaking day job. And then I'm just like,
wow.
God.
I have a similar story. So my regular day job is 1.5 hours away from home.
No way.
Well, yes, it is. And I had to go pick up my son from a random basketball pickup game that his friend invited him to last night, which was at a church. I had no idea what church it was at, in the back road somewhere here in Atlanta. And got home at 7:30, chowed down real quick, and I was like, I got to get this podcast right. I look at my laptop. Of course, my laptop is dead.
Oh,
so I'm trying to juice it, and getting that done. I'm waiting. I'm seeing the time. Like, okay, what's going on? Like, I have Skype wide open. I'm just waiting and nothing. And then I saw your ping on my phone. Like, I was like, what's going on? So then, so this passed about maybe 35 minutes, and then I'm still holding my tank. I still have to pee. So,
dude, if you have to pee, go pee.
No, I'm fine. We're gonna run right through it. I'm a New Yorker. Got to hold it. So make it more exciting.
All right, so I have to tell you, I am so intrigued with your Instagram page because you use some really cool filters. Number one. Number two is they are very motivating and they're very inspirational all at the same time. And, I was racking my brain today, Johnny, and I'm going, did he I don't I'm trying to think on how the terminology on Instagram. Did you follow me? Did I follow you? And I'm like, I don't care. Uh, because it divine inspiration, I guess.
I believe that. Yeah.
Where number one, the filters, where are you getting those filters? And number two, where's this inspiration coming from?
First, it's an app. It's called Photo Lab, and it has a free version and there's a paid for version. I do the paid for version. It's $10 a month, and it gives me a lot of flexibility to be kind of creative with that. And I also use PicMonkey.
Okay.
And PicMonkey is great. So I also do some creations in PicMonkey, more of the still pieces and things like that. But that's really only two apps I really use. Is this PicMonkey, which is not so often as much ever since I got to Photo Lab. Mm-hmm. So everything's been doing on the phone. I'm taking selfies of myself and putting the phone far away to take time photos. Mm-hmm. Trying to get the right kind of body language so it can really convey what the actual verbiage I'm going to put up there. And then the second part of your question is inspiration is coming from. It's weird. It's kind of been in me all my life, going through certain circumstances, going through a divorce, back in 2012. I've always been kind of a developer. I've been a mentor to a few people in my life. I never really thought anything of it. It kind of just happened. And I guess I didn't know what I had until now, which I'm going to be 40 this coming Saturday.
Hey, happy birthday, Johnny.
Thank you. And I said last year, I was like, you know what? It's time for me to decide what I'm going to do with myself. I'm going to be 40 years old. The next phase of my life, I'm going to do what I want. And I was trying to figure out the whole social media thing. Wasn't sure which one to be doing on what platform. I do have many platforms, but the main one is IG, Instagram. And the podcast has kind of made sense. My little car rants, and I'm interviewing people as well. And it just kind of started flowing, and I started kind of finding my own kind of niche. So I wouldn't say I'm a motivational person. I would have to say more of a lifestyle changer, because it's a lifestyle change you have to implement to yourself, right? To me, motivation is fickle. It's temporary. It's like adrenaline. People get motivated for 2-3 weeks. They're gonna go to the gym, but that's not what keeps you going. That you gotta also have to have drive. You got to be driven. You got to have determination and focus. And people kind of misconstrue the motivational part, and that's why a lot of people tend to fail.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those old adages that you go to. I've seen Zig Ziglar a couple times. I've seen other so-called motivational speakers, and a lot of the good ones will say to you, I'm not here to motivate you. You need to motivate yourself. I'm gonna give you some good content. I'm gonna give you some good, life advice, but it's totally up to you. And I think that's where I think I'm gonna admit it right now. I'm gonna have a bromance with you, Johnny, because a lot of things that you say on your Instagram is just common sense, and it's just a lot of times you sit there and you go, "Oh yeah, okay, I get it," but it's like you were saying, you're not there specifically to motivate them, but you're just giving out some great life advice. And does this kind of stem? Let's kind of rewind the clock.
Sure.
And talk about you didn't the so-called broken home, I remember hearing that, I think I was like 16, 15. Somebody said, "Oh, you come from a broken home." And I'm like looking up going, "No, the ceiling's fine. I don't know what you mean." But, you know,
Right.
growing up, you had a tough childhood, a very tough childhood from what you're
Yes.
saying.
Yes. Growing up in Brooklyn, we lived in East New York, which was a bad place to live, bad neighborhood. Then we moved to Bedford-Stuyvesant, which is a worse place to live. So it was kind of from bad to worse situation. My father left when I was like 6 years old. I have three other siblings. They're all my sisters. I'm the only boy, and believe it or not, the person who stepped in was actually his best friend, who became my stepfather. And he taught me a lot of stuff. He taught me how to be a man. He taught me how to be steadfast. He taught me how to have confidence. He was a military man. He was in the army as well.
So
with that being,
when you say, sorry to interrupt, Johnny, but when you say
sure.
he taught you how to be a man,
Hmm?
what does that mean?
He taught me how to take care of women. He taught me how to be a family man. He taught me how to have that respect, how to be silent and listen, and not just always be the person that's in the front of the line. He always told me, I want you there. I want you to sit back and listen before you speak. I want you to honestly think about what you're going to say. And he would just sit me down and we would just have these discussions. I'm like maybe 7, 8 years old. He's telling me this crap, right? and I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? I know, because I'm so young, but I wound up doing it to my kids as well. And you don't realize that is being planted into you, and it's just an amazing feeling knowing that now, as I am a grown man, and I'm using all the adages he taught me. I'm using, everything that all the arsenal, all the tools he gave me, and saying, "Hey, now this is for you to live with and survive." And it went from a survival mode in the living mode. And surviving and living is totally two different things. I was raped by my stepmother when I was 11 years old. To see my father at that time, where it's going to see him every a couple of weekends, and I was just mainly playing with my friends. I really wasn't seeing him. He would pick me up, he'll give me $50. Hey, go play with your friends. And for the weekend, I'm kind of the rich kid on the block with my friends, and I'm like, hey, let's go have some pizza. Let's go get the bagel shop. Let's go to the movies. Ride the bikes around town in Brooklyn, and that was it.
Right.
And dodging a lot of stuff. And when I went home, I had to move home to the projects, and I had to dodge a lot of stuff. So my mother kept me home, and she kept me reading a lot. So I read a tremendous amount of books. I dropped out of high school like the first month of high school.
Oh,
So
really?
I already have an 8th grade education.
What was it because of not wanting to be there, or was it something
Yes,
else?
school wasn't for me. No, school just was not for me. Like, I love to learn, and because I read so much, I was like, with the curriculum they were teaching, I was like, why am I here? And I did have one teacher that took interest in me. His name was Chris Ambrose. I wish I could find him now. He was actually a business lawyer. He did business law. He took off a year just to teach English at my high school. And for some reason, he just took a liking to me. He would call my mother, "Hey, how he's doing? Where he's at? What is he doing?" And he was a great mentor. Well, he was probably one of my first mentors. And I wound up by 17 having my daughter, my firstborn, and she's currently now 21. And just going through all these experiences, not realizing how much a foundation it was building for me for later on. But at the time, I didn't see it. At the time, it was more kind of devastation and reaction, just reacting in survival mode. And that was it. So,
Your fight or flight.
yeah, absolutely. Because at 15, I already had met my ex-wife. She was already in college, and I was 15.
Wow.
And, yeah.
They do things differently there in Brooklyn.
Yes. So I was always kind of, because I wasn't a normal kid. I was reading so much. Like I just had all this knowledge, and I was getting all the street smarts as well, because running around the streets. So the combination of two just kind of made my mind go faster. I just was ready to go. and I always dated older women, and it was easy for me.
What books were your favorites back then when you were 15?
It was random books. It's weird because I'm the type of reader that I don't care about the author. I don't care about the title. It was just a bunch of old books my mother would have in her closet. I can't even tell you the names of them. Like I just the way I am, because I have ADD and my mind constantly goes. When I read, I continue to still think and hear myself talk when I'm reading, and that always was a problem for me. And that's why I think I didn't do too well in school either. So when my mother would tell me to read, she was like, "I need you honestly to sit here." I don't, and she taught me not to care about the author. She was like, in the name of the book, she was like, "Don't think about none of this. Just read the words off the page, and whatever comes out to you, I want you to hold on to that, and that's for you to keep." And this was a very young age. I was like, "Okay, I can do that." And I'm reading, chapters after chapters, page after page. I'm like, oh, this is crap. I don't need this. I don't need this. And then I see a passage. Oh, I want that. I want that passage. Okay, I'm gonna keep that and internalize that. And I would go through these books and kind of filter through them and just keep the parts that I want to keep. And without realizing it, I started applying it in my behaviors. So I would go and speak to a person and use words and use a combination of language. And they were like, "How do you know this at 11 years old, 12 years old?" I'm like, "Well, my mother has me reading about Abraham Lincoln." you know. And so I'm like, it was amazing. It was great to have that that communication with her, and how she taught me how to kind of get out of my own head. And then I realized that I kind of put that aside when I met my ex-wife. Life happened, and I got back into my own head again. And that was kind of the part that really got messed up, because if I would have kept on track, then things probably would have been different. Because I went into survivor mode. I went into a portion of my life where it was just, okay, now I got to play father, I got to play husband at 18 years old. And I couldn't be a kid at that point. I had to man up, what they say.
At 15, what do you think you really wanted to be when you so-called grew up?
At 15, actually, I wanted to be a mechanic. I love cars. Me and my brother actually used to work on cars on the street. He had a 72 Chevelle with a 327 engine in it with bored dial heads. I'm not sure if you know what that means.
No, you're talking to somebody who has an engine light on their car right now, who's just blessed that I'm making it back and forth to work every day. So my wife, if my wife was here, she'd probably talk to you about that and understand. I'm like, where does the gas go again? I'm like,
no, but it was really became a passion of mine. I used to make actually the little model cars as well. We would go to the hobby shop, get the plastic cars, and actually put those together. And that kind of went out the way, like I said, because of course I didn't finish school. I had to go into, like I said, I had to grow up because I had my daughter and I had to get a job. And my first job was at Foot Locker. I was a stock boy, and I was there first. And when my ex-wife became pregnant with my daughter, my manager, his name is Tony Gee, awesome Italian guy from the Bronx, and he told me, "I want you to go on the floor." And the floor meant, selling shoes. I was just on the stock. I said, "I don't want to do that. They're working commission." I was like, I'm good at what I do back here. I don't want to deal with people and stuff like that." He was like, "No, you have to. You're going to have a child. And what you're getting paid right now," which was minimum wage back then, this was probably 95, 96, $4.25 an hour.
Ooh, big money.
Yeah. So also told me too, when he found out that my ex-wife was pregnant, he was like, "Son, I love you to death, but you have to move out. You can't stay here with your family."
Wow.
And I was like, so at 17, I had my own apartment. And so I had to sustain that. There was times where me and my ex-wife would sit in our bed and the landlord's banging on the door because we didn't have rent. Then we couldn't make rent. And that happened a number of times. And but those things are battle scars. Those are wounds that you grow from, that you learn from. Some stuff that had to be force fed, like that. Because I made my choices and had to lie in the bed. I kept. So as I continued to go on, I made retail my career. So I became, the past 25 years, I've been in retail management. and again, self-taught. Kept on reading different types of books about management, and went to career development, and was doing that, and kind of traveled to different companies and around the country just doing career development pieces. Again, that was all self-taught. So when I speak to people who are given training, they go, "Oh, what university you went to?" I say, "I don't have even a high school diploma. I have a GED. I have my GED." As I call it, that's about it.
Can you
So
can you even spell GED?
No, I can't. Yeah, that's why I called it as GED. I was like, yeah, I got my GED. And so yeah, my life is interesting. It's I think it's normal as well. I think it just shows that I'm just a normal American that went through a struggle, an early struggle, but I never took to blame anybody else. I've always used my regret as positive energy to push myself. And I think a lot of people tend not to do that, where they don't use their regret. They kind of use it as a negative thing, and it feeds a negative energy. Because regret is a negative energy, but you have to learn how to use that to perpetuate yourself to where you really want to go. If that makes any sense,
Oh, definitely. I agree. I think that there's both schools of thought of you shouldn't have regrets, or what you're saying, Johnny, you should learn from your regrets. It's not a bad thing. It's a learning opportunity.
Absolutely. And I think all the engagements I've had throughout my life, it's kind of led me to now. And the post I put on IG, honestly, like I said, I'm not trying to motivate anyone. Those are things that I feel at the time, and I'm talking about myself. If you really look at my posts for every IG that I have, I'm really talking to myself, um, and that's something that I've always done. If I inspire someone of that, then that's great. I have a few people that had been DMing me and saying, "Hey, can you help me with this and give me some advice?" I try to stray away from giving advice. I try to help and guide people through the path that they already know that they have to go through. I'm just kind of bringing it to the surface for them, saying, "Hey, you have the answers already within yourself." Because my story is my story, and everybody has their own story, and you have to be proud of that. And once people can stop being ashamed of their life or their choices, they can start winning every day. Honestly.
Well, you're talking about regrets, but let's talk about something positive. I mean, other than
Sure.
your big 4-0, March of 2018, this year, you're about to get married.
Yes, I am. My second marriage, and to the right woman this time.
And I know that's what I say too. Yeah. What's funny is I've met more and more people that have gone through what you and I have gone through. We've gone through that starter marriage, and now we're on our hopefully second and last marriage. And it seems that the second marriage, and this, I guess, I know you're not looking for advice, Johnny, but to me,
sure.
It seems that the second marriage works way better, even though we can break down to statistics and all that garbage. But with other people I've met, their second marriage has lasted the longest. I mean, I look at my mom, for example, and my bonus dad, they've been married for eons. So I'm telling you right now, Johnny, the second marriage is fantastic. But I want to ask you, so you and your fiance, is it 9 kids between you?
Yes, between us is 9 kids.
How's that working out for you, Mr. Brady Bunch? You are luckily the Brady Bunch.
We are the Brady Bunch, actually. You're absolutely right. Luckily enough that the majority of the kids are older. So the ranges of age are from 5-year-old twins to 21-year-old. So we have a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, an 18 to 18-year-old. We have 2 16-year-olds. We have a 9-year-old, and then we have the twins. So it kind of worked out because the ages are so similar, if not the same. And I gotta say, it was really weird because when me and my fiance finally decided to say, "Hey, no, we're gonna make this a serious, relationship," the first thing we talked about was, okay, how does the introduction work for these kids? Because we didn't want anyone to feel jealous or anyone to feel misplaced because there was so many, right? And the biggest thing we came up with was, okay, well, we broke down every child and said, especially the younger ones were simple because they're really not going to remember much. But the older ones, okay, now how do we not have the jealousy? How do we explain to them how their insight is just as important as the next person,
Definitely.
and that they're going to have a say so in this. So what we decided to do was, before we even did the introduction, was that we spoke and sat down separately as two separate families and introduced the concept of a boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, for that matter, to them first before the actual in-person introduction. And I gotta say, because of how my ex-wife played out her relationship, I've kind of had the inside scoop of what not to do. Right? So I learned that.
Those are great things to learn. I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I tell the story to very few people that the first time my dad took me to introduce me to his girlfriend, I became the devil child. It was, the long story short is he picked me up from the train station and we hopped in a cab and I said, "Hey, are we going somewhere for dinner?" He said, "No, we're going to my friend's house." I'm like, "Okay." And the friend was his girlfriend, and we were ending up going to be sleeping there. And Johnny, I flipped. I mean,
wow, yeah, you would. I would assume so. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, the closest thing I can tell people is that green pea soup should have been coming out of my mouth. My head should be spinning. I swear I was the devil child. And I felt, later on, years later, recanting that story, and putting it into a book, I'm going, oh my gosh, my apologies to my dad for having to deal with me. And God bless my dad that night. He never raised his voice. He was calm. My poor mom had to drive an hour from the suburbs down to Chicago to pick me up. My dad's girlfriend, Pam, she was super cool, but it's, and sounding or hearing what you're saying, Johnny, that is so key, is involving the kids
Absolutely.
as soon as possible, because they don't want to get too attached if something goes wrong. And
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
I commend you, Johnny, and it sounds like you and your fiance started off really well in the well foot. So so you sat down with both camps, right?
Yeah, and we said, and for my part, I told my children, hey, you know what? I'm dating someone, and I was very sure, 'cause I had other women I was dating, but I never introduced them to the kids. I wanted to make sure that I was really sure about this person that I was going to probably spend some time with, or if not, become my next wife. And when I found Monica, my fiance, and I was like, okay, this is it. She's the person, and let me sit down with the kids. The conversation was very, very simple. Just saying, hey, I'm in love with someone, and but I also gave them some expectations because I'm their dad.
You're right.
And I was like, she's not going to replace your mom. Your mom is your mom. You will respect her because she's a human being. And whatever relationship you decide to have, so I gave the control to them. I give the onus to them. Whatever relationship you want to have with her, that is totally up to you. You can determine how close or how far you want to be with that relationship with her. You will be respectful. You will be the child that I raised. And so when I gave them that information, they were like, "No, Dad, that's fine. We would love to meet her." Then I explained to them, well, she has kids as well. These are their names, these are their ages. And believe it or not, you guys have some similar characteristics that are the same, and you guys may like the same stuff. So we finally planned a trip. She was living in Charlotte at the time. Planned a trip to go to Charlotte. And the kids actually hit it off way better than we thought. And they bonded so well that to this day, they don't call each other step brother or step sister. They just call each other brother and sisters, and they're so committed to each other. Like, we've learned a lot from them, actually, and they're so committed to each other, so committed to the family. And it's funny because you would think the blood relatives would be closer, but it's weird how some of them have attached to each other from the other side and become best of friends and best of siblings. It's just awesome and humbling to watch how so-called unrelated folks can become family.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think, my biggest thing, and I'm going to speak to not just you, Johnny, but to the men, where they come into the household and it's their way or the highway, and the kids see BS right away, and they're like, "Screw you! What do you know nothing." But if you come into their world and just maybe sitting back a little and observing, you're going to get that respect, quicker, and possibly even earn it occasionally. But
absolutely,
you're going to, help them big picture wise if you don't come in, hard ass. And I think, and my wish is that more and more dads, more and more men would do that, what you've done, because it's like you said, you're learning from the kids, and it is so cool. And I'm going to tell you, I remember when my oldest bonus daughter, Betsy, we were, my son Connor plays hockey, and we went up. He had a game up in the mountains area, and the kids went skiing. I don't ski. I'm a fan of sitting and not drinking anything, having adult beverages, that kind of thing. Absolutely. That's my kind of skiing, Johnny.
Absolutely.
And so Betsy was sitting there, and another family came over and said, "So what brings you up here to?" I think we're at Copper, and she just said, "My brother's playing hockey," and I'm sitting back going, "Oh my gosh, she gets it. She gets it." And I love the fact that not only your family removed the label. I wish more and more families would remove the labels of the whole step.
And that's an old school term, right? Because
it is an old school term.
Yeah, it's an old school term. And men were different compared to men of today, right? And the biggest challenge that a man has to do is, like you said earlier, kind of sit back, and it's hard for a man to not control something. It's an
like the remote.
So what I did was, I'm not going in trying to be no one's father. That was my mindset. I'm not going to be your father or your friend. I'm here as your mother's boyfriend. That's who I'm committed to right now. Now, I'm very open to learning who you are. And that was my exchange with them, with her kids. It's like, hey, I'm Johnny, and let's get to know you. We're going to go to the mall. I'm observing what they like, what they don't like. If a conversation happened, it happened. And you have to accept conversation for if it's a 2-second conversation. Oh, I like that. Or it actually winds up you actually moving from the crowd, and you two are walking by yourselves, walking and actually engaging him in a higher level. So you have to accept any snippet of conversation as a win, because that means that child has opened up to you. Now, it would take time to get deeper and deeper engaged, but you have to be committed to the relationship, because it's not just her or him that you're getting with. You're getting with the whole family. So once you take your time, and I think it's the patience factor. A lot of people are not patient anymore. If you're going to truly build something with this person and the children, you have to be patient and let them see the person that you really are. If they know that you're one, like you said earlier, kids can smell bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
They can smell it a mile away, and they'll call you out on it because they have no filter, right? They're children, so they're just going to say it. And
they'll say it to your face.
That's what you have to love about that process. It's a process. And you have to go through that process. And I think patience is huge. I think, like you said, laying back is even bigger. And just letting shit happen naturally. If a new movie comes out from Marvel, and you just so happen that you don't have to buy the ticket for it to go first. And I think we try to win kids over by material stuff as well. So
Let me ask you this,
They don't
Johnny.
get impressed that easily. Yeah.
One of the things that, and again, I think you and I are becoming cosmic spirits because my wife and I said, all right, we were dating and we knew that we wanted to move forward. We knew we wanted to, eventually get married. And so it came time to introduce my son to my wife's daughters. And we picked a neutral place. We picked a outdoor skating rink, and that's where we all met.
Okay.
The coolest thing is my son and I got there early. We're already on the rink skating around. My wife's youngest daughter, Becca, who's, I shouldn't say youngest too much, she's 16, driving. Excellent driver. Excellent driver. You don't have to get up the sidewalks, as that joke goes. And she got her skates on first. She sees my son and I. She comes up to my son, Connor, smacks him in the shoulder and says, "Tag, you're it." Those two take off. And like you were saying earlier about, just sitting back and observing, that's what I got to do. So here's my question to you, Johnny.
Yeah.
If you and your fiance's kids, if the kids did not get along, would you have continued the relationship?
Yes, because I love her. And that just would have been, again, it's a process. So if I'm committed to her, I have to be committed to the family environment. And that means I have to work a little harder. It's called hard work. That's what marriage is going to come to as well. Right? My second marriage is going to be hard work. We have to work at it every single day. And if you're going to really be committed to that person, then you need to be committed to the family. And like I said before, don't go in there thinking you're going to be someone's replacement dad or mom. That's too much of a burden on you, I think. That's a lot of stress trying to fill someone else's shoes. Whether the parent is still there in the picture or not, it's not your place to fill it in and take that spot. Let the child decide if you're going to take that spot. Let them label you. Remove all the labeling away. You get to know the kid. And like I said earlier, like I tell my kids, you have to determine what type of relationship you want to have with the person. Is it going to be a cordial, respectful relationship, which that's what I expect? Or it's going to be deeper than that. So we actually fall in love with that person and that person becomes family. And that is where you have to let things happen. If you're having trouble with the child, lay back a little bit. Observe them. See what they like. See if you guys have something in common. I think we don't tend to do that enough. And if you have, something in common with that child, maybe do something on the weekend where you kind of surprise them. If you both like planes, you just found out, go to a plane museum somewhere. And surprise the kid. And then, as you guys would talk about something that's in common, the conversation will grow from there. But don't force it. The kids could tell.
And what do your future bonus kids call you? Do they just call you Johnny?
No, they call me Dad. I have two that call me by my name Johnny, which is the oldest two. But I don't feel any type of way of it. It is what it is. That's what they decide to do. Then, but they still look at me as a father figure. Mm-hmm. They still come to me for advice. They still, we still have deep conversations. We give each other hugs and kisses. Again, it's about how they feel, how they want to feel. And when they feel more secure and comfortable, if they want to honor me and call me, dad or whatever you want to call me, or father or whatever, then that's great. I'll accept it. But I don't think nothing of it. It is what it is. And I get more surprised when they call me dad than when they call me by my regular name. So it's like, when they say that, that's a reward. I was like, oh wow, my goodness, that's very humbling. Like you actually look at me at that. That would just put more fucking pressure on me.
Come on, you're from New York. Forget about it, huh?
Forget about it. Goddamn shit. About
it. So, I think you've been giving out, and I know you're not. You were saying earlier you don't like giving advice, but quite honestly, Johnny, what you've been saying, and at the same time, mentoring and mirroring, I think you are giving advice in one way or the other, because again, I just wrote an article about traditional families versus divorce/blended families.
Sure.
And I don't know what it is. All of a sudden, I keep running into the so-called traditional family, and they don't really understand. And I hope I'm not sounding too mean on this, but it just doesn't sound like traditional families understand what we blended families go through. And I really want to educate more and more traditional families of understanding like what you've gone through,
Mhm.
you know, and and how and how unusual and our dynamics are really different.
Mhm.
And especially when you meet other families and you, like you've already said, the kids have already removed the labels. And
Yeah.
I was talking to another friend of mine, Bruce, who's been on the podcast, and very similar situation. And I'm just so amazed of how many uh, and and I guess I'm just uh, focused on the dads right now, but how many dads, very similar to you and my friend Bruce, have, I guess, done it right? Because once you do it right, a couple of things. One, the kids remove the label, and
Correct.
and it's brother and sister. But it's the funny part. The second part, and the funny part is when you do meet other families, and for example, I'll say, this is my daughter Betsy, and they'll say, well, how old is Betsy? And I'll say 20. How long have you guys been married? I'm like, 5 years. And they give you that deer in the headlights
Yeah.
look, and they're trying to do the math, and you can see the wheels turning, Johnny, in their head, going, you've been
Yeah.
married for 5 years, and and then they start asking questions, and then, which is good,
Yeah.
but at
Absolutely.
the same time, it's like, yes, this is my
They're
wife's
making you say that
daughter.
step word. Yeah, they're making you say that. And they're trying to get that shit out of you, which I hate. And what I tell them is, because you said a couple of things that just is making my mind go crazy right now. Because you say as far as your friend as well, like he said he did it right, is because we did a couple of things. We gave ourselves up to the process. Okay. The traditional family is because you created something together. The two separate families is two different tribes coming together.
Ooh, I like
The
that.
traditional, a traditional family is not going to get that fact of how these two tribes are actually going to make it work. Because traditionally, tribes usually fight. And because we're having these two tribes combined to each other, and actually work out, the strength is in the numbers, right? And so now we're stronger, we're a little bit bigger. So the food bill is a little bit more heftier. And so the energy bill as well. But that's okay because we decided that we're okay with it. And if you're trying to force me in conversation to really get it out of me saying, hey, this is her daughter, well, no, you're not going to get that. That's our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And even for my daughter that calls me Johnny, I don't say, this is my stepdaughter. I still introduce her, this is my daughter. And she may tell me, hey, Johnny, I'm excuse myself, I'm going shopping. And they're like, she just called you by your name. And I'm like, absolutely, that's okay, because that's what our family does. Um, you have to look at your family and say, hey, we are exclusive. This is our special dynamic. And if you can't fuck with it, then don't fuck with us. And
Hey,
that's
don't fuck with the family. Don't fuck with the
don't fuck with the
family.
family. That's it. We've decided to come into this picture and make it as one whole. If you can't handle that, your traditional family is just fine too. There's nothing wrong with that. But you keep yourself on the side of the road. We'll keep it on ours. There shouldn't be no explaining. There shouldn't be no justifying. There shouldn't be no coercing someone to say the step word. Unless you feel that way, that's fine. But I would never call one of my children step at all.
And I've never understood it. I've never understood what is, I mean, is it a step good? Is it a step up, or is it a step down?
No,
And
I think because for so long they've always combined the families, the two tribes, but they kept it as two tribes. They never tried to get it as one.
right.
I'm sure one of the two people in hopes had an idea of this can maybe work. But not until recently that's when you really see parents really understanding and trying to say, hey, no, we're going to be a family. This is what we're going to do. And like for my kids, they call my fiance, they call her Mama. They don't call her by her name, and but they actually asked her if they can call her that. They approached her because they loved her so much. They said, "We got to come up with a name for her." And they felt weird calling her by her name. They said, "I haven't called her by her name no more, Dad." I was like, "Well, you guys can decide, and whatever you guys decide, talk to her and ask her if she's okay with it." And they did that, and she was more than ecstatic. Of course, she cried. She felt so humbled and so just happy and elated with all this joy. And of course, the kids now, kids are annoying, no matter what side of the fence they're on.
Yeah.
And parents are annoying. So when I get irritated with one of the kids, I'm getting irritated with one of the kids. If they get irritated with one of the parents, they're getting irritated with one of the parents. And it's funny hearing the kids talk to someone else, and they'll say, "Well, hold on, I have to ask my parents." And that's when it feels really fucking good. That's when it hits your heart. You're like, it wasn't even a second thought that word just came out. I have to go check with my parents. It wasn't with I had to check my dad or I got to check with my mom, and then Tommy as well. It was I gotta check with my parents, and that's when you know as a parent you fucking did something right.
Well, that's where I go back to, if you know, I mean, not to say that anybody can predict the future, but if you are in a solid relationship and you want that commitment of marriage, and I love the word
Right.
tribe. I'm a huge Seth Godin fan, and I love when he uses the word tribe, and I love the way you're phrasing it too, Johnny. And when you do have your two tribes, I'm also a Frankie Goes to Hollywood fan, as I think about Two Tribes Go to War. I love that song. Anyway, but
that can be your hip hop name, Two Tribes.
Yeah, it could be. We're gonna talk about your podcast and DJing. We're gonna talk about that.
No, sure.
But when you do sit down, and that's the key, to sit down with the kids, yes, and explain to them what's going on and letting them be a part of the process, or as my Canadian friends would say, the process. Yeah. I think it's a win-win situation, and it goes back to not coming in, forcing a relationship and forcing these kids to, I'll never forget, my mom dated this guy who was a very high-ranking military guy, Navy guy. Okay. And they were going to some ball, I believe, and he came in the house, threw his dress shoes at me and said, "Shine my shoes." And I want to say, fuck you. I put so much shoe polish on that. I mean, it's just like,
yeah, I bet.
But it goes back to doing the right thing and not forcing anything. Absolutely. And in that situation, I could have Johnny. I could have taken that guy. I know I could have taken him.
I believe so. I believe so. And it's funny you say that because my father, which is my stepdad, but my father, very hardcore military man, and we had in the beginning there was, especially when I became a teenager, we really butted heads. I don't think it was because he wasn't my biological father. I think it was just because I was a teenager becoming a bull, right? And he wasn't allowing me to. He was holding on tight to he's the man of the house. But even then, for him to take so much interest, to take so much care, and how I saw him was a direct reflection of how I became who I am today. And I'm hoping that all the kids see what I'm doing. I'm hoping all the kids see what my fiance is doing, and they would apply that in their later years to their family, whether it's a traditional family or if it's two tribes coming together. And I'm hoping they can learn from that. And it's a great feeling to have this family, and people get amazed by the size because it's so large. But it's a great feeling. It really is. And it doesn't come without strife or difficulty. You know, I don't want people to think it was just super easy and I just rubbed on my genie lamp and got my 3 wishes and that was it. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was just, it was work. And I think people tend to forget that word. It's fucking work. You got to put the time in. You got to have patience. You have to lay back. Sometimes you have to step forward. Sometimes you got to go back 3 more steps. It's a constant battle of that. And once you get the rhythm and the pulse of your family, that's when you win. And that's when you really understand how your family dynamic is going to function now. And those are the days when they're playing tag, you're in. Or they're saying, hey, my brother's over there. And you're like, holy shit, she just say her brother? And you're like, I'm going to leave it alone. That's awesome. That's when you know, wow, okay, the family is coming together. All the hard work, sometimes tears happen as well. Or that's all part of it. It's going to build that foundation.
Well, I want to tell you because my bonus dad didn't come in with that hard ass attitude, and I respected him for that. You know, he came in, and he's a super cool guy, and
Sure.
one of the wonderful memories I have of him is in the burbs of Chicago, where my mom and bonus dad were living. I was in town, and we were on the back deck smoking cigars and drinking beer together.
That's amazing.
I'm telling you, if he had been a hard ass, that never would have happened. But I just look at the way he came into the situation, and when I ended up in the situation with my wife Ann, I said, that's how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be some hard ass. I'm going to come in and not necessarily be a friend, but not going to be, right away
Right.
a parent. I want to come in. I want to observe. I want to, be a part of their lives. And if you do it that way, you're going to build great relationships. And it sounds like, and you truly are, and I really mean this, Johnny, you are the Brady Bunch to the next level.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, it's funny you say that because I grew up watching so many TV shows. I grew up watching The Brady Bunch One, The Partridge Family, The Cosby Show, and not having my biological dad around, he taught me how not to be the father he is, and I thank him for that. I truly do thank him for that.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was talking to a friend of mine today, and very somewhat similar situations. His dad wasn't around, and he said the same thing, that you learn what not to do.
Absolutely.
I said, I look at the relationship I have with my dad, and we really didn't start bonding till I was in college, and he came up for Parents Weekend. He was the one who actually took me to go look at the school. Then he took me up there when I moved to school. But the biggest lesson I learned from my dad was the world of being a chaperone. My dad came on, and I want to say 2 field trips, but I specifically remember 1 field trip. And because of that interaction with my schoolmates and with him taking the time to be a chaperone, when my son, entered grade school, I'm telling you, Johnny, anytime those teachers sent out the email saying, hey, we have a field trip coming up, bam, I was on that email because I saw the impact what my dad did to me of being, having those proud moments going, yeah, we're on a field trip. This is my dad. Yeah, this is my dad. We're on a field trip. Yeah. I mean, because of that one interaction, because of that, him taking the time, that created a huge life lesson for me. And I tell that to other dads, go on field trips with your kids, have fun. And you get to see them act stupid. You get to see them in their own element. It's just so fun to watch.
No, you're absolutely. I think that this generation of dads, are a lot different from dads prior. The baby boomer generation, has a little bit of that old World War II generation in them. That they always have that kind of little bit filter into that. But they've also known that they also know what it was like to not have their father there. The older generation just worked their tails off. So their father may have been there, but he wasn't there because he was working 18 hours a day. The newer generation now we have, this work-life balance theory that we want, right? And we want to make sure we don't miss anything. Which is bullshit. I totally agree. It doesn't fucking exist. And you want to make sure that you just spend time with the family. And I'm a big believer in taking time. There's always time. People say, "Oh, I don't have enough time." You do. You just have to stop the bullshit. You have to really grab the time. So if you can find time to watch Netflix and binge watch, 4, 5, 7 seasons and something, then you can definitely find the time to spend time with your family, and maybe grow a relationship within your tribe you're deciding to invest in. And those are things you have to really manage. And I want to say I do it all the time, but I'd be lying to you if I said that. Because I have to be selfish when I'm doing my podcast. I have to be selfish when I'm posting. And I need the time for me to do that. And I'm trying to write my book called Pep Talk. Positivity, engagement, and patience. And so you have to be selfish. But the reason why you're doing that is because the greater good of the family. So you can't forget about that as well. So you have to plan it out. There's a calendar for a reason. And you have to look at that calendar and say, what, next weekend we're going to go barbecue. We're going to the park. We're going to make a whole event day out of it. And really capturing and making those moments on purpose. And then sometimes you just have to say, go with the flow. Screw it. I'm going to call out of work today. I'm going to go to pick up the kids out of school early so fucking surprise them. And we're going to go see the new movie that came out last night. They're going to just go freak out. I've done that a couple of times. My kids got so mad at me because they had a test. They're like, "Dad, I had to have this test. I was about to fail my class. You took me out ahead of time." I was like, "Screw your tests."
You adopt me, Johnny. I wish you were my dad. Taking me out of school and not facing any tests.
Sometimes you just have to be spontaneous like that. Sometimes you really have to show your kid, like, what, I love you, and my job is my job. No doubt, I have to pay the bills, but you guys do come first. And this is why I work so hard, is so we can have moments like this. And that goes for any type of blending family. Like, you have to try different things, see what works, see what doesn't work. You have to be willing to fail in the family, and that failure should build you back up and not separate you. And I think that's where we tend to lose ourselves. When we fail, we tend to have that separation to put that wall up, and that's something we have to get rid of, especially in a blended family, because the whole "you're not my whole parent" thing, or "you're not my child" could come up at any given moment, and you have to suppress that and kind of delete that from your memory bank, and saying, "This is my parent and this is my child, and that's it," and go from there with it. Again, it comes down to the type of investment you put into it, type of relationship that comes out of it. But you have to give it a try. You have to give it a heave ho. And that makes any sense. I don't want to sound like I'm bullshit or anything like that, but
no, you're spot on. But I want to change gears because you're talking about you're a hardworking man. You are a family man. But let's talk about your fun. Let's talk about your podcast. Let's talk about your passion with DJing. So let's talk. Tell our listeners, and I say "our" because I'm sure some of your listeners will be listening to this as well. Talk about your podcast.
What, the podcast, the DJ podcast?
Yeah,
was actually my nephew. And so I'm actually interviewing people that are just starting up, who either wants to become an entrepreneur, or maybe they want to go forward in their career. Because right now the entrepreneur thing is so hot. If you look at everyone's IG tag, they're an entrepreneur, but they don't have a business. So I'm not sure how that works. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't have a business. I'm a type of person where, just be honest, like, it's okay to have a career. if that's so your choice. There's plenty of CEOs out there that make millions of dollars and they're happy as shit. There's people who shovel horse shit for a living and they're happy as shit as well, right? This depends what you're looking for. So my nephew was a prime example. He's only 22 years old, and he wanted to become a DJ, and the family wasn't so hot about it. It's DJ, like, oh my god, what kind of profession is that? Why don't you go to engineering school instead, right? But he knew what he loved. He loved music. He knew he couldn't rap. He couldn't be a musician in any type of way. But he knew he loved music. And when he saw his first DJ, he was like, wow, it just hit him. That's what I want to do. He didn't think about the monetary aspect of it. He just said, I just want to play music. And now he's 22, and he played football in college in New Jersey. He moved to Atlanta, and he's actually now at a point where he's making a living off of DJing. He is a true spirit of entrepreneurship. He loves it. He doesn't want to work a regular job again. He was working at Walmart at one point. And he's like, now I can afford to take care of myself. Now, he's not rich. He's making enough money to pay his bills, to travel the country, and to enjoy what he's doing. Is he gaining more performances? Yes, because he's becoming more known. So that means he's making more money. And as the years go on, he's only 20 freaking 2. That's ridiculous, right? So he's making his life money his own way. And so I'm interviewing people like that. I have another interview coming up with a Black Muslim woman. So we're going to be talking about how it is to be Black and Muslim in America. And what does that look like as far as being a woman as well. My first podcast I did earlier for last week was also with a gentleman who was actually he's from Brooklyn as well. We met up in Atlanta. He was always aspired to be a boxing coach. And he's right now working at a retail store. And his passion, he wants to go back into boxing. And what stopped him was an interesting story. What I learned was that he lost his first fight. And that first fight stopped him from boxing ever again. And having that as a learning lesson of what to do for the next fight, it just stopped him cold in his tracks. He got afraid. He was like, this thing is just a dream. Let me stop and go get a job. And now he would never know what kind of boxer he could have been. That's with Coach Q. You see that in my podcast as well. So the people I have lined up, I'm going to be talking to, it's just everyday folks. So, because people always hear and see and listen to stars or celebrities. They need to know that, hey, there's someone just like you starting from scratch. Idea, not just starting from the beginning. Everyone talks about the success of the top goal. Like, your goal is here and I've made it. Nobody actually hears someone's true story of how they started. And that's the whole purpose of me doing a podcast for myself as well, saying I'm documenting where I'm at. I do have a regular 9 to 5. I spend every minute that I have extra on the podcast. Also, I'm trying to write, and that's a second job, man. You have to edit, you have to upload. Sometimes it doesn't go right, so it's a second job.
Well, you're talking about, a lot of people for example, on social media, on Instagram with the tag of entrepreneur. And the way I kind of look at it, Johnny, is I call myself a solopreneur because just like you, I have a day job and I'm solo. I'm it. I'm the salesman. I'm the producer here. I'm the host, just like you. And I'm thinking, once I've graduated from solopreneur to entrepreneur, meaning in my mind is that an entrepreneur is somebody who is like your nephew, who is making enough money, not millions, not billions yet, but is making enough money doing what they love and making that to pay their bills, to pay their rent.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I look at it as a solopreneur.
Yeah.
It's that you're at the ground level. You're doing like you and I are both doing. We're doing podcasts, we're writing, we're not making, money off of it yet.
Correct.
But we still have to have a day job. We both, I love this. We both have an hour and a half commute.
Yes, we do.
It's a 3-hour round trip.
Yes, we do.
I think you're, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're doing this as well. I've taken the opportunity to, as I'm sitting in my car, other than listening to, education stuff, I've taken the time to now podcast from the car.
Yes, I do. Most of my podcasts are from the car. Yeah,
There you go. See, I mean, great minds think alike. And,
absolutely.
I like the fact that you're talking to other people that are at that ground level going, all right, here, as Dr. Wayne Dyer and Dr. Stephen Covey always talked about, think from the end.
Absolutely.
Where do you want to be? Well, I want to be X. Well, how do we get you to X?
Exactly.
And with your podcast, you're showing and teaching through other people
Absolutely.
the steps.
And that's exactly the podcast I want. And what I have done recently is I've kind of have slowed down what I listen to because I don't want to be influenced by anyone else. If that makes any sense,
Yeah.
I'm very cautious what I'm reading now. So I'm kind of reading more articles than books because I don't want to kind of take in someone else's persona or their language and kind of make it my own and like, well, it's not really mine. But it's, you have to kind of have to do that. Like you have to really fall in love with what you're doing, and then let it come to you and figure it out. And that's why I think this year is going to be a great year for both of us, because the uniqueness of the podcasts out there, and they seem so perfect. And I love the fact that I can have different sounds in the background. I want to let people know, hey, this is a real person, not some dressed up just show, And my goal, like I said, is just talking to people through other people's stories. Because we always hear that successful story. We never hear about the failure. Like I said, the Coach Q, he had his first loss and he stopped boxing. He would never know right now what kind of boxer he could have become. That opportunity is gone. And before someone gets to that place, I want to be able to help them prevent that and say, you know what, take that loss, learn from it, and use it to push you with some more positive energy. And the next few people I have I'm going to interview is going to be more women, to really see how their voices are, different ethnic groups. Share your story, make me understand. What do you have to go through on a daily basis so I can really understand your plight? You have goals, yeah. Like I said, the person I'm going to interview, she's a Black Muslim woman, and she converted. She's originally from Detroit, and she lives in Atlanta now. And we're actually having a talk on Monday, and we're gonna ask those questions. Hey, what made you convert? What do you see people when they look at you? How do people perceive you now? What kind of struggles do you have? Because you are also a woman as well. Outside of that, so listening to those things, and I could be helping anyone at that point, or someone could be listening to the podcast, male or female, and really resonate with that story. Everybody has a story. I want to give that story to the people out there to give them a bigger voice. And I think the podcast is in the right direction right now. I'm always working on thinking of different ideas, but not too far out to where I lose the essence of what the podcast needs to be. So when you invited me, I was like, this is great. But I was like, does this fit my branding? I had to be very cautious of that. And I was like, yeah, he does. I was like, okay, we can do this then. And I was like, gun ho, let's do it. Let's make it happen. So I was like, yeah. So those things are right. Like I said, we have a day job. Our side job is our podcast. We do have to be cautious about who we engage with, right? We have to be careful who we're interviewing with, and does it sound right? Did we lose connection? And there's so much more behind it.
Well, the only hesitation I had to have you on the podcast, Johnny, was you're a Yankee fan. I'm a Cub fan, and I'm a Chicago pizza guy, and you're probably a New York style guy. So, that was the only thing that was holding me back, is going, you know what? Forget about it.
Listen, I love Chicago. That's why they call it the second city for a reason, because New York is first. But
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Johnny's episode will not be airing.
No, I love it. Like, I've been to Chicago a few times. I love it. It does remind me of a clean New York City. Actually, it's an amazing place. Because New York has a stench to it. It's very dirty. It reminds me a lot like Brooklyn. Brooklyn is actually very similar to Chicago. But it's just great when we get to meet other people that's doing the same thing, and you get to hear someone's story. Like, you told me your story, I told you mine, and we didn't know. We were kind of kept this information kind of uncovered because you want to save it for the podcast. You don't want to dig too deep.
Yeah, and
in the back end.
That's a great point. And to a lot of the listeners, a quick little backstory is I don't like sending out pre-questions. What one piece of advice, and you're going to have to give advice, Johnny.
Okay.
What one piece of advice can you give to the ladies out there about dads, about men that maybe will help them? And where the question comes from is a lot of times after a divorce, the moms don't think that the dads need to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
So what one piece of advice can you give out to the moms out there?
We hurt as well. The divorce wasn't one-sided. Be patient. Be considerate. We are very simple beings as far as men. We take direction well. We like to hear direction. And the biggest thing, like I said, is be patient, be considerate, understand that we love as well. We may not be as extroverts as some other women are, and that's where dads come to understand. But if you truly were with that person at one point in time in your life, you already know who that person is. You already know how they tick and talk. So don't use that against them. Use it to make your new family different, and understand that you are now going to be extended family members now because of your kids. And that will always be the case because there's going to be weddings, there's going to be birthdays, there might even be deaths. And you're going to have to share those things. And there's still going to be a family unit to be shared. And that's what I have. That's it.
My new brother, I appreciate your time. I appreciate
Absolutely, Tommy.
I appreciate your bladder right now. And
it's strong. It's a Brooklyn bladder, man.
You got to eat. Now, I don't know if the listeners can hear, but my dog is not happy with me. So, Johnny, thank you so much for your time.
Right. Tommy, you got to come on my podcast as well. So we'll look at trying to get you on the podcast. So we'll work on that.
I got a face for podcasting. So wherever you need, Johnny, I'm here for you.
Awesome, Tommy. Thank you so much. I'm very humbled. Thank you again for having me on. Great podcast. Love your stuff. Thank you so much, man.
And Johnny, I love your Instagram. So keep up that great work. Keep up that great work.
Thank you. It's hard work. Let me tell you, it's a lot, but I'm doing it 3-4 times a day. So yeah, it's growing.
All right. If I don't hear from you before the wedding, and I hope we do. I hope we talk again.
Yes, we will. We will, definitely.
And I am an ordained minister, Johnny. I can do the wedding for you.
Holy shit! What the hell are we waiting for then? We can get married this fucking weekend. Let's do it. Yeah, I can go to Chicago. Fuck it. I'm not eating your pizza, but we'll go to Chicago. Yeah.
Okay. Road trip.
Road trip. Exactly.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family. The complaint department is now closed for repairs. Try again next time.